I'm Leanne Christie. You're in the studio at 268 Kiefer Street. I have been painting now for about 12 years in total. Well, I've been painting longer than that, but I always say that I've been painting 12 years in total because that's when I consider I actually became a painter. When I moved here in 2008, I decided that I was going to become a painter full-time because it was really the last time I was going to move, and I knew that. So I did. This is what I do. I come into the studio every single day. I am usually here on Saturdays as well. And yes, I work with oil paint, and I primarily work on canvas. The reason why I work on canvas is because there's a nice feedback, and that's really what all my paintings are about. It's about the feedback between myself as an artist, my materials, and then the painting itself. So that's why I choose to work with canvas. How you experience the city in terms of the mode of transport that you're using really does influence the way you think and feel about the city, and of course influences the way I communicate then through my paint and my medium. When you're on a bicycle or when you're a pedestrian, not only do you rely on reading the body language of other people, so you become very, very aware of them, very in tune with them, you also experience the smells and the sounds of the city. So there's always parts of the city that you don't feel comfortable in, and there's also parts of the city that you just feel exhilarated by, that you want more of. It's the same thing about architecture, how the architecture influences the spaces that you're in. I look for subjects which interest me as a painter. There's enough content there that I can really get stuck in and be stimulated. But I also look for images or little stills in the video that capture the sensation of the city. So although I start with a very specific image and the painting very much goes along the lines of where that image wants it to go, at the end and during the course of the painting, something shifts and the image becomes less and less important, and the conversation with my paint becomes more important, and also trying to express how I felt being in the city in that space at that particular time with all these sensations stimulating me. So the image suddenly disappears into the rearview mirror, and now I'm looking at where does the painting itself want to go. So although I start with an idea of where I want to go, I know I want to go to Vancouver. I'm not sure what address I'm going to, and I'll only know that once I've followed all the little trails and all the little bits that are in the painting, and I suddenly look up and I go, oh, this is where I was going to go eventually. I'm very happy with that. Because you're a human being, you're not a machine, I understand that one of the best ways to talk to you is through making you feel something through your emotions. When I put that one big brushstroke that carries all the way through, there is a very good chance that you're going to notice those bristle marks that are in there, because that's very important to me as well, is a tool that I'm using. If I use a palette knife is just, it's like a knife, it's just a little bit more wobbly, and it's got a flat edge. So if I put paint on with my palette knife, it's very, very smooth. So again, it pushes you away. There's nothing for you to grab onto. When I'm using my brush, I have all these little hairs, and each hair acts independently of itself, of the others. So when I put it onto the canvas, you have all these lovely marks. If I hiccup while I'm putting down that brush stroke, you'll see my hiccup in the paint because there'll be that little bump. If I go really fast, the lines will be beautiful and straight. And if I'm a little bit more hesitant, a little slower, you'll see me breathing and you'll see my heartbeat as I'm moving through that brush stroke. But all of these things you will notice. You'll see, and your eye will move along with it. And as your eye moves along with it, maybe the paint will change in thinness, maybe it will become a little thicker. You'll start feeling, and all of these things, as you're noticing them, start making you have an emotional reaction to the painting. When you start having that emotional reaction to the painting becomes as important to you as it is to me, and you start enjoying the paint itself. And then once you start enjoying the paint itself, you get carried away. So what is the story? And then you'll step back and you'll have a look at the actual subject. So the paint is more important than the subject. My work really only deals with the transitional spaces in the community and in the city. I commute from Coquitlam into Vancouver every single day. In the morning I tend to go from the east to the west, and in the evening I go from the west to the east. And it's always along that same line, you know, mostly tracking Hastings Street all the way into town and back. All the paintings that come out of the studio are birthed on that one line. And they're only those transitory moments that you experience as a human being. And it's very, very important to me that my paintings are from the human perspective. They're being inside the city, experiencing the city, experiencing the people around you. They're never about this one place. It's not about the place that we congregate. It's a place that we move through. And there'll always be something in my commutes which capture my attention because I had a momentary interaction with someone, or I happened to look up for that brief second and see how the skyline had changed, or there was that one smell that really caught me that made me focus more on the ground and then feel a certain way about the ground that I then want to talk about in the painting that I work in the studio. So the paintings that I work on, they're never grand. They're simple human experiences of the city. And even the paintings where I push the narrative a little bit more and bring in those composite images, they're still from those transitory moments of this in the areas of the city that you move through. They're not the places that you settle, the places that you have a destination. They're all moving through, interacting with you.